When I was probably 9, 10 years old, they had one of those how-to paint kits with a little thing on the cover of a cabin. I can still see the cabin with the orange sky behind it. And I said, "Can I try this?" So I read the little blurb of how to do this, and I did the cabin like it was on the cover. And right away, I kind of got some things about painting. About there's kind of a mechanical aspect to viscosity, just what's going to happen when you put that much medium in that, what's going to happen when you do things like that. And I kind of understood that a little more than a normal kid would. I think what I really want to say and communicate in my work is I really want to talk about where we are and really how wonderful it is to be here. Plein air painting is basically a French term. Plein air itself is plein air. It's French for working in open air. You hear the term alla prima, and basically that means painting it all in one session. There's so much beauty around us, there's so much life around us that I feel like if we can learn to observe, a little bit of wisdom will creep in, a little tolerance, a little bit of acceptance, a little bit of appreciation. And those things, in general, have to make us better human beings. Humboldt County is so rich in the landscape. I mean, I find it incredible that within 2 hours, I can go from the bay to the kind of soft, gentle landscape or seascape out on the spit, to the jetty, to the South Bay. I can climb up and look over the entire Eureka Basin. I can go in 20 minutes, I can be in Trinidad painting the rocky West Coast Pacific landscape. I can paint the redwoods by just going to Redwood Park or anywhere around here. I can go up along the Trinity River and change the temperature 20 degrees or 30 degrees by the time I get there. Paint one of the most beautiful river systems in the world. I can go from there and in another 40 minutes be into the Trinity Alps and paint the alpine scene. So it is so incredibly rich here. I mean, just driving over the Samoa Bridge, looking out at the bay. I do that back and forth all day, just in different lights, just to do it. It's a fabulously beautiful place. And also something that we don't think about a whole lot is the quality of light here is fabulous because of the amount of moisture. That's what causes all the atmospheric perspective, is the amount of moisture in the air. You're actually looking through denser air at different times of the day, and from day to day the light changes so much that it's really interesting. I grew up in Willow Creek, for the most part. A little bit of time in Burnt Ranch, which is a little dinky town about 12 miles upriver from Willow Creek. It was pretty much a Rockwellian childhood along the Trinity River in the 50s, so it was a fabulous place to be a kid. An event happened to me when I was 11 years old that gave me a little bit of a different outlook on life in general. I was in a pretty severe car accident, and I was scarred badly on the side of my head. And as an 11-year-old kid, it was a really traumatic experience. And I learned a lot about myself and people and how to persevere and make it where that isn't the most important thing about the human being or the soul or the spirit. And I feel like that was really life-changing. What brought me to Colorado in the first place was I went there on a wrestling scholarship. I actually had full ride scholarships to UCLA, Cal Poly, Berkeley, as well as football scholarships that I could choose from. So I basically put myself through school on an athletic scholarship. I really missed the ocean. I didn't live by the ocean too much until I came out here to go to college. But for some reason, being away from the big pond was was difficult. And there, everything froze and died in the wintertime. Everything was either brown or evergreen. And the rich lushness of this place, you know, the beauty of just between here and the Trinity Alps is incredible. I came back from Colorado, and I went to work after kicking around a little bit. I went to work as a full partner with my dad, fallen timber. I'd worked in the woods when I was a younger man, setting chokers and stuff like that while I was going through school. So I ended up doing that for 2 years, and I realized that, you know, I was not going to be a painter or an artist if I kept that path. I was going to have a boat and go to the lake and do all that sort of stuff. So I sold everything I had and traded 2 paintings for a 1951 flatbed Chevy truck, 1.5 tons, 16 foot long, and I built a camper on it, my little gypsy wagon studio. I had a little cantilevered thing over, and I lived and worked in that for 5 years or better before I settled down and got a real studio anywhere. Humboldt County has changed through the time I've lived here. In many ways it's changed little, and in many ways it's changed a lot. The road system was so small, and so there were so many little places along the roads that have been bypassed by the cars with better mileage and everything being faster and all the roads being better. It used to be about every 10, 15, 20 miles along the river there was some little restaurant or pub or something like that, and people would go from place to place, and there was a lot more industry. When I was a kid, there were 7 working mills in the Hoopaw and Willow Creek area and Burnt Ranch, and the logging industry all around that supported it. There was hundreds of people in town, busy as hell at 5 o'clock in the morning going off to work. The fishing industry out here was just booming. The logging, fishing, the trains ran. The train ran from here to the Bay Area. When I was a kid, we used to hop the box cars from Arcata to Eureka, ride on the flat cars at night sometimes. It's one thing that hasn't changed a whole lot, which is good, is there's a certain friendliness, certain thing with the people here that's a little closer knit than most places. I like that a lot. The unbelievable outpouring of people. Every Arts Alive here in Eureka is astounding compared to what was available when I was here trying to just get started as an artist. The opportunities are amazing, and the interest of the people. We live in truly one of the richest places on the planet as far as art. The last show we had at First Street, I showed with a guy from Portland. The guy digs me out about halfway through the show, and he says, "Are you kidding me? I've never seen this many people in an art event in my entire life." And he hadn't even been outside yet. It was amazing. There's a certain zen that you have to get into to react and really get a hold of what you're looking at, and the state of mind itself is kind of no state of mind, kind of in the true Zen fashion. You're so involved in doing what you're doing, so involved in executing the puzzle. Each day changes so much. Each hour or 2 hours change. So when I'm trying to get a hold of a specific block of time, there's an urgency that there's no second chance, there's no time to waste, there's no time to noodle. The great killer of most paintings is indecision, And when you paint alla prima, you know you're not going back. So when you make a decision, you put it down, and there it stays for the most part. There's a certain amount of manipulation with the wet into wet paint. And just the nature of wet into wet paint is a uncontrollable beast. But when you can ride it, it's a journey. And it turns out, in my estimation, those are the best paintings when you're on the edge and they turn out to be something that can only happen once. Because a lot of the places that have good designs, you start out struck by one design, but by the time you're finished with that painting, you've seen another 2 or 3 places you want to do, or just different angles on the same thing. And what I've done several times is gone back 20 years later. Places that I used to paint around the bay, I'd go back to that place. Some of them can't even get to anymore. Some of them have changed enough that they're no longer accessible. But going back it's good in both ways, because you see how you change through the time and then how the place changes itself. I want to have every avenue of every part of everything coming through me that I'm seeing. Everything's tied together with electromagnetism anyway. So I believe that those powers or forces wash back and forth across through us all at all times, just like anywhere from intuition to all of the senses that we have that we don't rely on so much. The smells, the sounds, everything. An example, you go to the beach. Sometime go to the beach and don't plug your ears, put earplugs in or something. It's not the same experience. So when you're painting something like that, if without that sound, it's not the same thing. And when you're on location, you're able to pull all of those things together and try to tell that story of that moment and that day. And that's the excitement of alla prima plein air painting. One stroke can be a whole field of grass, and you can't really get away with that on a large format. So, and concentrating more on plein air painting has hopefully even influenced and changed my studio work. And I believe I'm changing all the time. It's just changing in my own direction, I guess. At first, I was all about telling a story. Almost all of my work was internal, and I told stories of little something I might have read in a book that sparked an interesting concept, or something that I saw in lots of fantasy stuff, and especially back in those days. And trying to change the world, trying to say something. And now it's more the activity of actually doing the painting is saying what I need to say. Slow down, look around you, appreciate what we have. I'm looking for design. It really doesn't matter too much how technically expert you are. If you don't do a good composition, it's ho-hum. And the idea is to make a painting that flows, like we talked about, the way the eye sees. And if the eye is racing around and it comes up against a bump, and I can take the bump out, I do. If I can richen and deepen the color, a lot of times, especially in water, things will do weird stuff and reflections and colors that I don't really want that in there. So I'll change things. I'll accentuate atmospheric lighting. I'll change things slightly to make the painting better. A personal signature that every artist can't help but give each time they put a brush to canvas, that tells you something about them and how they feel about life, painting, the world, their subject matter, everything. There's something else that happens, or why not take a photograph? There's a certain amount of discipline that's involved in any kind of art, where you need to draw, you need to understand the landscape itself a bit. One of the things that usually sparks a landscape painter is the love for the land. And the way that usually comes about is being out in it and loving it and being part of it. Because that's what you're talking about. You're not talking about the arduous time that you spending there painting, you're talking about what a gas it is to be out there on the beach by yourself, or up along the traveling that you do, the looking around, the excitement comes from life. So get your head out of the television, get your head out of the phone, get your head into the landscape, get your body into the landscape. Your body itself is a huge benefit. Get out there, move around. It's the greatest vehicle in the world. And use it to experience the beauty of it, and experience beyond just the visual beauty, the sound, the smells, the exercise itself. Just do it.